Today we're going to be looking at decimals and how we can understand the 1 to 10 relationship between decimals, in addition to how we can represent those decimals. So first, take a look at our place value chart. You can see the big blue decimal. So what is each place value in this particular example? You have your thousands place, your hundred place, your 10, your 1. Those are all your whole numbers that you already know. Once we go to the right of the decimal point, we're going to notice that the value is less than 1. So immediately right to the right of your decimal point is your tenths place, that THS in red, so that you notice the difference. It's not your 10, but your tenths place, hundredths place, and your thousandths place. All right, so our next question is, how do we say decimals? It's very simple. So if you take a look at this number, you have a 9 in the ones place, 2 in the tenths, 3 in the hundredths, 4 in the thousandths. Great. If you remember from last year, we say the decimal not as a point or decimal or dot or anything, but you want to say the word and. And represents a decimal. So, for example, this will be 9 and then you're going to say your decimal. All right? The way you know what you should say is you take a look at the entirety of the number behind the decimal. So the entirety of the number behind the decimal in this case is 234. Take a look at that last digit, which is the 4. It ends in the thousandths place. So that's what you're going to say. You're going to say 9 and 234 thousandths. Again, this is a review from last year. All right, so let's take a look over here. I have an 8 in my hundredths place, a 2 in my thousandths place. The thousandths place is the last filled digit, so my answer should be 82 thousandths. If I take a look over here, the last filled digit is my hundredths place. I have no holes, no tenths, no thousandths. Your answer should be 3 hundredths. Finally, over here, if I take a look, I have no holes, no hundredths, no thousandths, only 9 tenths. Very good. Very good. So I want you to go ahead, take a look. Try saying these numbers. If you'd like, now is the perfect time to pause. Pause this video. Practice writing how you would say these numbers, how you would write these numbers. Do that on the sheet that you have. Don't wait until I tell you the answer to write it, because then you've learned nothing. All right, so the first one, you're going to say 1 and 23 hundredths, because that 3 is in the hundredths place. For your second one, it would be 56 thousandths, because that last digit 6 is in the thousandths place. For number 3, you're going to say 1 and 3 thousandths. Don't forget your decimal, you say it as an and. All right, so we're going to continue by looking at our 10 to 1 relationship. So I want you to look at the question at the bottom. It says blank is 10 times as much as 4 hundredths. We know that we want to say 10 times as much. The value is increasing, so the digits should be moving 1 time over to the left. So now we know that 4 tenths is 10 times as much as 4 hundredths. Same thing here. If we want to say blank is 1/10 of 4 hundredths, we're going to move in the opposite direction. We're going to go to the right, therefore reducing our value just by 1 space. So we see that 4 thousandths is 1/10 of 4 hundredths. I know you guys kind of already know this because we were studying it in the other chapters, but this is just a review because now we're explicitly studying it in the decimals place. All right, I want you to go ahead and fill this out on your paper. I'm not going to be giving you the answers for this, but you have your decimals all the way on your right. You're going to tell me what 10 times as much as that decimal is and what 1/10 of that decimal is. Go ahead, write it down. You can pause the video. Finally, I want us to go over how we can model decimals. So these yellow figures that you see in front of you are called base 10 blocks. I have them in my classroom. I believe they're blue and green in my classroom, but today we're just going to look at yellow versions of that. The first block is called a flat. The second longer block is called a rod, and the last block is called a cube. Generally, or what you've seen before, is that the flat represents 100, the rod represents 10, the cube represents 1. But when it comes to decimals, we're going to actually change that. So now I wanted you to put it in your head that that flat represents 1 whole. The rod represents 1/10. And the cube represents 1/100th. So how do we model thousandths? Because I only went to hundredths in the last one. Let's take a look. Here's your hundredths cube. Remember, this means 1/100th of a whole. You're going to chop it up into 10 equal pieces, just like that. So that is what 1/1000th looks like. It looks like one of those pieces that you took the 100th and you chopped it up into 10 equal pieces. So here's a good example. How many thousandths are being shown? It's really small, right? You had that 100th, it got chopped into 10 equal pieces, and only a few of them are shaded. Right? There are 6 thousandths being shown because there is only 6 thousandths that are shaded in. It's really, really small. That's how small a thousandth is. It's incredibly small. All right, so let's continue with that idea. Look, what number am I modeling? So I remember that my flat equals a whole, but my whole isn't shaded in blue. Only some of it is. Going up and down, giving you that rod, that's 1/10. So when I count, I see 1, 2, 3, 4 tenths shaded in, and then 2/100ths pieces. So that would give me 42 hundredths. I hope you got that. If you didn't, you have one more practice. Let's take a look. All right, in this case, I have an entire flat shaded in like 100 little pieces that are shaded in. So I remember that that gives me 1 whole. And then in my other flat, in my other hundreds grid, I have just a few pieces shaded in, some hundredths shaded in. So I'm going to count those hundredths. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Great. So it's 1 whole and 7 hundredths that are shaded in. So 1 and 7 hundredths. All right, so I want you to go ahead and take a look at this slide. Take a look at this model. I'm not going to tell you what it is immediately. Go ahead and pause. I will tell you, however, that that cube that's off to your right is really just a zoomed in hundredths cube, and it's been chopped up into 10 equal pieces. So think about that. What could that mean? Okay, go ahead, pause, figure it out. All right, I'm assuming you paused. So this is showing us 3/10ths that are shaded in. There is 9/100ths shaded in, and that cube all the way off to the right shows me 8 thousandths shaded in. So all in all, this is 398 thousandths. All right, so at this point, I want you to go back and answer the questions, the remaining questions that are on your sheet to complete homework. Bring it tomorrow, and when we get into small groups, we will review. Thank you very much.